Narendran, welcome to the alumni cast. I think we also have director, and I think we have all of our students, respected professors, and all the distinguished faculties, and everyone is part of this session. And this is our Narendran. This is our third alumni cast for this calendar year. We have already conducted 8 in 2020. We used the COVID effectively to connect the alumni and also the faculty and what's going on, and also people who have reached the pinnacle of their professional career to share their experience and what impact they have done to the and contribution they have done to the society and the communities. So now I think we also just did a silence prayer. We lost 21 lives from the alumnus. So I think we just, I think for all the departed soul, I think we did a silence prayer, and Lakshmi just did a Ganapati song because she was telling Narendran was not able to connect because we didn't start with the Ganapati prayer. So she's in Singapore. I think it's already midnight for her. So she did, she started with it. Now over to Mali to just give an introduction about, Narendran and welcome, Minnie Thomas and get the session moving. Go ahead, Mali.
Good evening, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Okay, I think a warm welcome to all of you, the students who are here, the alumni who are gathered, our director, Minnie Thomas, and the faculty. I think it's a really wonderful evening for all of us. It's a really privileged evening for all of us. Normally, when introductions happen, people start with saying, it's my pleasure, it's my privilege. I'm going to use a third P this time, pride. I'm very, very proud, and all of us should be very, very proud to welcome our dear friend Narendran, distinguished alumnus of REC Trichy to Alumni Cast. Welcome, Narendran, first of all.
Thank you. Hi.
Okay.
Thanks.
Really proud to do this introduction, I should say. And Narendran is a dear friend, and that makes me even prouder. Personally, and all of us should be very proud that all of us, the fact that he's from REC Trichy, NIT Trichy, and it's a very, very special feeling to have such an accomplished individual and a wonderful human being as our co-alumnus. Thank you, Narendran.
Thank you, Bali. You're kind.
There are two reasons to be proud of Narendran. Narendran, the professional. After finishing REC Trichy and IIM Calcutta, he joined Tata Steel, and he's the current managing director and CEO. And his performance there is nothing short of spectacular. That's the word to use. And maybe even more incumbents won't be out of order. He's the current president of CII, which is by itself, I think, I would imagine among the few Rectians or the first Rectian to be the CII president, I'm not sure. It's really a privilege and pleasure. Apart from that, he's chairman XLRI Jamshedpur, vice chairman Indian Institute of Metals, chairman Tata Steel Europe, chairman Tata Steel BSL. You can keep adding the list. And last but not the least, distinguished alumnus of REC Trichy and IIM Calcutta. Okay, so personally, I'm very fortunate to have been to the two same institutions that has been to Narendran. It's really an honor for me. Okay. On the personal side, I think that's the more important side that people really don't talk about, or maybe do not. Maybe Narendran is a wonderful human being. Okay, for somebody to stay committed to one organization for 32 years and stay loyal is something which is lesson and inspiration for all of us, including the students here and the alumni here. I don't think there are any. I'm not sure with anybody else in this room who's currently had that kind of commitment to one organization. Okay, that shows rare character. Above all that, he's such a wonderful person. You see, whenever I've called him, even after he became CI president, he returns calls within 5 minutes or returns messages within 5 minutes. If he can't, he sends a message, I'm sorry, I'm not able to return. Actually, as a matter of joke, when I did that in his first day as CIA president, he sent a message, I'm in a meeting with the minister right now, sorry, I can't talk. Okay, that's the kind of person Narendran is. And funnily, a few years back for my other alma mater, IIM Calcutta, I had invited Narendran and called him tentatively if you could come over for a function to Chennai. He said, Mali, I will come if I'm not going to Europe. He kept his word, came over, had some work in Chennai, but made sure he came to Chennai. Really touched. And he had told me when I called him, if I don't come for old friends like you, who will I come for? He's that kind of person. He never lets us down, his friends down. This morning, actually, he sent me a message at 5:30. I'm an early riser. Narendran seems to be an earlier riser. Okay. He said, what is the dress code for this evening? I almost burst out laughing. I called him and said, what are you talking about? You should be what you were in Emerald Hostel. You were in Emerald, right, Narendran? Okay.
No, I was Lapis.
Lapis, okay. You should be what you were in Lapis. Okay. wear your, I said, but not a lungi, but maybe a shirt on there. So and this afternoon I had called him when he was on a flight, and he got off the flight, said, did he call me? And we had a hearty laugh. And Narendran is that kind of a person, wonderful human being, amazing professional. I think presenting to you TV Narendran, a rare jewel in the REC and IT Ground Director. He is really a rare jewel, an amazing and awesome professional, and overall a wonderful human being. I'm really proud to say he is my friend, and all of us should be proud that we studied at the same college or studying in the same college that he studied. I would like to hand over to the director, Minnie Thomas. She's going to have a chat with him before I get into the game. And I should mention in this context that the director, Minnie Thomas, has been extremely supportive of Recal over the last few years and even this year. Whether it was the Recal COVID Care initiative where she supported us with ideas and support and infrastructure in the college, or this alumni cast kind of initiative. I must apologize to her. We have pulled her away from 5 Sunday family evenings, including today, 8:30. And really, thank you for that, director. Nice of you. I'll hand it over to you to take forward the chat with Narendran. I will come back later into the chat after the director finishes asking her questions. Thank you, director. Thank you, Narendran, again.
Before the director starts, I must thank Mali. In the 35, 40 years I've known him, he's never said so many nice things about me. I really appreciate it.
Let's keep that for an off-record conversation, Narendran.
Yeah.
So, good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome, Narendran, to the alumni cast. And I wish to thank Mahalingam and Raja and Krishna Sai and everybody else who is organizing such kind of events. It's wonderful to have you with us today, Narendran. And congratulations on being the CII president for 2021. And of course, the global MD and CEO of Tata Steel. We at NI Trichy are really proud of you. And I must say that Narendran is one CEO who replies, instantly. He replies, So, and yesterday I messaged him at night. What questions should I be asking you? So, like you said, morning 5 o'clock, I got a message that I leave it to you to ask any questions. So, thank you for that. So, let's start from people. Please. Yeah. So, since we have a lot of students with us, I thought let us start from the early days. I was doing a little bit of reading about Narendran because I don't know him personally as such. So I read that your father, late Sri Vishwanath Narendran, was also with Tata Group. So just eager to know, where did you grow up and where did you do your schooling?
Yeah, so very strangely, I was born in Jamshedpur, the city which I went back to when I joined Tata Steel. My father was in what was then called Telco, or Tata Motors as it's called today. He was a foundry guy and he was there for 10 years. And I was born in Jamshedpur. But we left Jamshedpur when I was 2 years old. So I did not have any memory of Jamshedpur till I went back there. So for me, Jamshedpur was always this very exotic place I was born in, but I had no memory of. And I grew up in Coimbatore. My father moved down to Coimbatore. He was a foundry guy, a lot of foundries there. So all my schooling was there. And then I came to REC. So, so I grew up, I'm originally from Kerala, born in Jamshedpur, grew up in Tamil Nadu, studied in REC, and then went back to Calcutta, and then ended up in Jamshedpur again. So it's a full circle.
Oh, wonderful. So just wanted to know, like when we grew up, you are maybe a couple of years younger than me, but generally I just wanted to ask, did someone inspire you to be an engineer, or does it run in the family? Or you didn't like medicine, so you took up engineering like I did? Because when I was young, only 2 choices, medicine or engineering. So how did you come to REC? How did you become an engineer? I mean, how did you become an engineer?
I think it's it's a typical middle class upbringing, right? So you end up being a engineer or doctor if you can do so. I was obviously better in math than in biology, and so somehow inclination was towards engineering. I was always fascinated by cars and automobiles. I thought, you know, uh, I somehow, in a very simplistic thought, if I become an engineer, I will end up making cars or something like that. So, and REC honestly was the best college to join if you didn't get into an IIT. I'm being very honest. REC Trichy was the best college to get into in Tamil Nadu. So while I was in Coimbatore and I could have stayed at home and joined any of the 3 or 4 colleges that were there, but REC had a reputation, and I personally think it's very important to, at some point in time, sooner than later, move out of your home and be on your own, which teaches you a lot of things in life, which become very important as eventually anyway step out of your homes. So I think my mom had heard from somewhere that REC Trichy was very good, and like all mothers, she wanted me to go to the best college that I could get into, and REC Trichy was that. Yeah. I also got into BITS Pilani, but I think REC Trichy seemed the place for me to go to.
Thank you so much. I must thank your mother for sending you here so that we have we have Narendran as our alumnus. Also, I was reading only today. I came to know that your grandfather is Sri Ikanda Warrior, who was the last Prime Minister of the state of Kochi. Can everybody mute, please? The name is so famous as an able administrator and who architected 3 famous dams in the state of Kochi. Did he influence you, as a, as a youngster to do well?
Hugely. You don't sometimes realize how much some people influence you till much later in life, right? So I was the youngest in my paternal side. I was the youngest amongst all my cousins. I mean, amongst my male cousins, or other, in fact, amongst pretty much all my cousins, I was the youngest. And my grandfather used to spend a lot of time with me. He was a Gandhian, he was a freedom fighter, and he was one of those guys who quit politics when India got independence. He was one of those very idealistic kind of persons. Again, a lawyer by profession, but who chose to give up his profession to fight for freedom, etc. So he used to sit me down and talk to me a lot. And those days, I used to get very impatient because he was eating into my playing time, and he used to give me a lot of, a lot of advice. He used to he used to subscribe to books on freedom fighters, which, used to come to me. And I used to read those books. And, he used to kind of, in many ways, get me into that, or rather, planted those seeds of idealism, which I did not realize till much later in life. So I think much later in life, when you start looking back at where do your values come from, I think a lot of credit goes to both my grandfathers. My paternal grandfather, Mr. Kandavariar, got me into that kind of spirit of idealism, nationalism, value system, etc. And my maternal grandfather was a great sports enthusiast. I used to, even today, I know Mali timed it really wrong. We have, kind of fighting for attention vis-a-vis Wimbledon. I used to listen to Wimbledon commentaries with my maternal grandfather and play chess with him, and really he was into sports a lot. So I think both my grandparents influenced me a lot, and you probably realize that sometimes 10, 20 years after that. You don't realize it during your childhood, but you realize it much later. So yes, he had a huge influence on me, which I realized.
I guess so, because only today I was reading, and let me tell everybody, I never shared my questions with Narendran, because I prepared them only in the evening because I had a busy day till. In fact, I just came from college for this. I'm going back because something is going on there. So this is extempore. And I think that's an advice to all grandparents. Please spend time with your grandchildren. They will remember it later, because I can see many grandparents here, and quality time with your grandchildren. I'm not going to ask anything about REC. I'm sure Mahalingam has questions for you. But I just want to, understand, because you started your career with Tata Steel in 1988, straight after your MBA. a long stint. So what made you stick to Tata Steel, as the general trend is to switch jobs, right? So maybe it's good for youngsters to know what is, I mean, how good it is to stick to one company.
Yeah. So when I joined Tata Steel in 1988, I didn't think 33 years later I would be in Tata Steel, right? So to me, I just joined it because it looked like an interesting job. I wanted to join a company which had something to do with my engineering, which is not very common in IIMs, but somewhere I felt I've spent 4 years doing engineering. So if there's a company which has some link to my engineering background, that'll be helpful. So I joined REC. Of course, those days, I joined Tata Steel. Those days, Tata Steel also used to pay quite well, which also matters when you are 23 years old. Uh, but so when I joined, I didn't really think I would spend all my life there. But I think the great thing about Tata Steel is it gives you multiple experiences, and you can pretty much chart out your own career path. So you have a lot of options. So while I've worked for 33 years in the same company, I worked in maybe 5 different locations, 3 different geographies, 3 different countries, multiple functions. So it's never really felt that I was in the same company. I've always, every 3, 4 years, I was given an opportunity to do something different, learn something new. And the company invests a lot in your development and training. So in multiple ways, I think I'm privileged that I had this opportunity. It's also a company with a purpose, a company which stands for something, believes in doing a lot for the community. Uh, so it's a company with a purpose, with a soul. So I've never, and there's a congruence of values, personal values, and the company's values. So yeah, you're never required to do anything which makes you uncomfortable. So multiple ways it's worked out very well. So I think it's a great career that I've had. I've had the privilege of working with some wonderful people. Yeah.
Wonderful. I think, like some of us stick to teaching profession, and, like Professor Anandaraman and many other professors stuck to REC Calicut, REC Trichy to inspire youngsters. I'm sure you will inspire many more people to, if all this, I mean, you explained the reasons. Now, in September 2013, you became the MD of Tata Steel, and 2017, you became the global CEO and MD. So I was just reading an article, I think 3 days ago, 7th July 2021, Forbes India, which proclaims that TV Narendran, the global CEO and MD's efforts and initiatives have brought back the steelmaker back from the brink, even during the pandemic. That's great. Congratulations. So I just wanted to ask, what difference did you think you made to Tata Steel in a nutshell? I mean, it's like, 8 years and 4 years. Yeah.
It's actually a company with a lot of very passionate and committed people working for it. So I think as a leader, it makes it so much easier. People are so committed to the company. We have 5th, 6th generation employees. So and particularly when there's a crisis, everyone's together. Everyone wants to do whatever they can to help. So like I said, it's a privilege to lead such a team. Obviously, the media gets very excited when your profits are good and the share prices are good. So I think there's been a lot of hard work going on for many years. It's visible to the external world only when the numbers are good. But I can tell you that sometimes there's a lot more hard work even when the numbers are not so good. So I think the team has been working very, very hard. We've had some very tough years in the past, particularly over the last few years when China was exporting a lot, or even during the pandemic. So multiple times we've had a lot of challenges. Just now, Tata Steel has very good numbers, good share price. So we're getting a lot more credit. I always tell my colleagues, you get more credit than you deserve sometimes, and you get more criticism than you deserve sometimes. So this is a phase when you get more credit than we deserve. So just enjoy it while it lasts.
Okay. Thank you. But it was so nice to read that article that you are bringing back Tata Steel back into the foray again. That's really nice. Now, Tata Group, when you talk Tata Group, there is some trust which automatically comes with it, like whether it is Titan or whether it is, any brand you take. I think people believe in Tata. So it's Tata Group is known for its generosity and care for employees and common man around. In fact, I was so honored to be in Bombay House. It gives a different kind of an experience to even visit Bombay House. And I think I in my draw I have the special issue of India Today, which when you celebrated 150 years of Tata's, that was I read it. So could you elaborate some rare experiences at Tata Steel in this regard? Like, uh, how did you experience that generosity, or how you are doing it?
Yeah. So before I say that, I don't know how many people on the call know that Chandra, who's the chairman of Tata Group, is also an REC Trichy alumni. Rajesh, who's the CEO of TCS, is also an REC Trichy alumni. So I think REC Trichy has a pretty strong equity within the Tata Group, as is obvious. So to me, when you look at the history of the Tata Group, and I think the statement which J.N. Tata, the founder of the group, made is still relevant after 150 years. He said, the community is not just another stakeholder, but the very purpose of our existence, right? And I think it's a very short sentence which says a lot, right? So when you have a statement like that, which today, when you talk of organizations with a purpose, a balanced scorecard, corporate citizenship, a lot of jargon which is used today, in some sense was articulated very simply 150 years back. And many of us who joined the group or stayed with the group have stayed with the group because you think that this group, I'm not saying the group is perfect, nobody is perfect, but at least the intent is right? So you don't mind working very hard because you feel the money is being spent well. So I think that's a very fundamental thing. And it's not just about a statement which is hanging around on the walls of the companies, but something which is practice. And to give you an example, even before I was a CEO, amongst my other responsibilities, I was responsible for safety, which is very important because it's about employee lives. And in a process industry like ours, huge factories, safety is a very complex function to handle. So I remember, a lot of conversations in the Tata Steel board, because we used to have fatalities. And when there was a protocol in place, or there were benefits in place when an employee lost a life, the employee's family was taken care of, jobs were given, etc. But we didn't have those facilities for contract workers. And there were many fatalities of contract workers. And I remember these multiple conversations in the Tata Steel board, where the guidance of the board, and Mr. Tata was the chair at that time, was that, if somebody has lost a life, you can't replace that person for the family. But how can we make sure that that family doesn't feel the economic loss? And so at that time, I'm talking of 2012 or 2011, we came out with a policy: if any contract worker lost a life in Tata Steel, the family of that contract employee would get the last round salary, factored for inflation, an allowance for education, an allowance for medical, till the notional age of 60. So at least economically, that family didn't feel the loss. This was in addition to whatever the contractor gave that person. We said that's not going to dilute anything that we want to do. So I think some of these experiences reinforce the feeling that it's not just about saying the right things, but also doing what you say. And I think many of us have hung around in the group for 30, 35 years because of that.
Wonderful. I remember still very clearly, how Tata is still helping the Taj Mahal Hotel tragedy victims. We have read many case studies on that. So wonderful. I also want to add another Tatas to the group of three of you. Our current chairperson of NIT Trichy is on the board of Tata Sons, the former MD of Titan, Mr. Bhaskar Bhatt.
Absolutely.
So, we have a person here. Okay, now now that you are CII president, what do you think is the significance of such professional organizations or societies in one's professional career? Because I benefited a lot from my association of a professional society, which I chose as IEEE. Uh, what about you? I mean, how important is to be a member of such organizations?
It's important in multiple ways, in my view. Firstly, of course, you benefit personally and professionally because you interact with a lot of, uh, you know, leaders. You benefit personally because you learn a lot from these sessions and meetings that you attend. You benefit professionally because many people in CI are either my suppliers or customers. So I get to network with a lot of people who are relevant to me from a work point of view. You also learn about industries. In my current role, I'm learning a lot about industries I have nothing to do with because I know the steel business very well, or the metals business well, or the mining business well. But I learn about a lot of things which I wouldn't otherwise get an opportunity to get exposed to. I also feel as leaders, it's a little bit of uh, social responsibility that you have to spend some time because to me, organizations like these act as a bridge between government and industry. And if you can add value to that relationship between government and industry, then you should do that. It takes a lot of your time, but I think that's an investment that you owe to the industry and to the government. And I think if you're in a leadership position, whatever little you can do to help bridge, industry and government, I think you should do that. So in multiple ways, I think it's something that you gain from, but it's also a bit of an obligation that all of us should have. I mean, you can have different ways of doing that. You can be part of a Rotary, you can be part of professional bodies, you can be part of something else. But I think keeping aside some time for the community, for society, for professional bodies, I think is something all of us should do.
Thank you. Yes, I keep telling the youngsters, be part of a professional society. You don't have to do it alone. There are people out there to help you and mentor you for youngsters. For older people, it's a different kind of, like you explained, but it's very important to be part of a professional society somehow. Yeah. So I have one last question. But before that, did you have any advice for the students as such? Then I'll ask you my last question.
No, I think, there are no shortcuts to success. I think that's my fundamental point. Oftentimes people only see like somebody, a sports person once said, I worked very hard for 15 years and then I was called an overnight success. So oftentimes you only see success, you don't see the hard work behind the success. So if people want to be successful, I think, don't forget that there's a lot of hard work you need to commit to. There will be a lot of disappointments. There'll be a lot of, nothing will be a cakewalk, but you shouldn't give up. I think you should persevere, you should work hard, keep improving yourself, and, be passionate about whatever you do. Then it's much easier to work harder if you're passionate about whatever you do. So I think this looks a bit cliche to youngsters, but I guess experience will teach them that what I'm saying is relevant.
Yeah, thank you. That's very relevant, and also I think we should leave this attitude that the "mujhe kya milega" attitude. I'll do something only if I can see some gain for me. I think you should just enjoy doing what makes you happy, and then yeah. Anyway, that brings me to my last question. This is a question generally asked to a lady, but let me put it across to a gentleman. How do you manage your professional and personal lives? I'm curious to know.
No, it's never easy. You need to have a very supportive family, whether you're a male or a female. I think I'm, again, lucky and privileged to have that because oftentimes you don't realize a family sacrifices more than you do, and, particularly when you are in a role which requires you to move around. My daughter went through 5 different schools before she completed her schooling. And it's not easy as a 10-year-old, 12-year-old kid to make new friends every 2-3 years. It's easier for us to move to a new office or a new location, but it's not easy for kids to move to a new school and make new friends. So I think in many ways, the family suffers a lot more than you realize. So recognize that, be appreciative of that. And, work-life balance is always, I feel, I'm doing a good job. My wife doesn't think so. So, so to me, that's a matter of different, expectations. And but I think one advice I have in today's day and age, hyper-connected day and age, is when you're with your family, be with them. Don't be with your family and look at your phone all the time and answer messages and things like that, because then you're not there. So it's not about physically being there, but not mentally being there. So it's very important to be disciplined, to keep aside time for the family, even if it is, a few hours a day, a couple of hours a day, but that must be family time. I think that's my only advice. Otherwise, everyone has to find their own balance, and it depends on the support that your family can give you.
Thank you. Very, very true. So thank you so much, Narendran. We look forward to meeting you in person sometime soon. And I look forward to visiting Tata Steel sometime, because I've heard a lot about your campus, so let's hope this pandemic will be over and we'll be able to meet all of you in person. So thank you so much. Now
and you have a good reason. You have a good reason to come to Tata Steel. I'm told there are at least 40 RDC alumni working in Tata Steel. Yeah. So.
Good. Yeah. Thanks, madam. Thanks, director. And
just a minute, if I may interrupt, please. I'm Balasubramanian. Mr. Narendran, you
can we have the questions later, please? Can we have the questions later, please?
No. Yeah, it's not a question.
The questions later, please.
Yeah, it's not a question.
Any observations later, please?
I am the first pioneer to join Tata Steel from REC Trichy. I'm from 75 batch. Yeah. So yes. Narendran, you know me. We have met in Chennai meeting.
Absolutely.
I'm the first REC guy who set up REC Trichy in Tata Steel.
Excellent.
Later on, Ranasina joined, and then you came later. Ramachandran is also there with me.
Yeah. Today. Ranasina was also there. 10 years my senior.
Yeah. Ranasina was 3 years. He joined 3 years later. He was 1 year junior. 76 batch from REC.
Correct.
And 75, and I set up the REC Trichy name in Tata Steel. Whether good or notorious is a different matter.
Thank you. Obviously good, sir. Obviously good, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Balasubramanian.
Thank you, sir. Obviously good name only.
Great to know. And Director ma'am, thanks for I think shooting firing interesting questions, and Narendran, I think there is no shortcut or secret to success. I think that is a great message for everyone. I think not only for students, though Director asked from a student perspective, it's great for everyone. And now we wanted to move to the next segment. I think before Mali fires his question from the personal front, but
not necessarily personal.
Okay, fine. Okay, I have an obligation. Narendran. So we have been communicating with WhatsApp and sharing messages across all the batchmates. There was no single truth of record or single truth of place or portal where people can connect, collaborate, celebrate. So we have launched, I think, with the leadership from Krishna Sai, who is the past president, batch of 1990, and Raj Shekhar from 1974 batch. They took the leadership, and then we created a core team, and we have developed an integrated portal which can do all the 4 C's, connect, to collaborate, to celebrate, and everything. So I wanted to take this, though it was in beta, so we already have about 5,000 people logged into and registered into the portal. I would request you to officially launch the portal to the broader alumni community, because we have a target by end of this month. We wanted to get at least 10,000 people in the portal. Going forward, everything, whether you wanted to, there are special interest groups are there. You can communicate with students, you can communicate with faculties, and any events, everything will be centered around the portal. I think that there are several features, but we wanted to keep adding more and more. In fact, right from payment, donation, contribution, everything can be done under single roof. So I wanted to do the honors of officially launching the portal, and maybe add 1 or 2 words. You must have seen in your 32 years experience in Tata Steel how collaboration is important. Maybe if you could highlight that, I would appreciate that.
Sure. No, thank you. Thank you very much. I think, to me, fundamentally, the best friendships are made in college, and I think any platform which kind of facilitates that, helps us stay connected I think many of us have leveraged technology to stay connected over the last 10 years. You know, we were out of touch for 10, 20 years, and today technology allows us to stay connected and even talk like this. So to me, these kind of portals, these kind of platforms are very important professionally and personally. And all of us need support systems and the ecosystems which help us in good times and in bad times. So I'm privileged to be involved in this launch.
Okay, thank you, Narendran. So everyone, please go and register. I think we have been the Recal manager has been sending messages how to get registered. So this is just some few, you know, I don't know. I'll have Raj to, you know, just run this video.
It's happening. It's happening. Yeah.
It's happening. Yeah.
Sai, you go ahead with this.
Yeah, I think there are a lot more features to explain. So I would leave it to the members to just go to the site and register themselves and browse it. And we'll be sending separate communications to each of you to understand the features and be part of it. So thank you, Mr. Narendran, for launching it. And I'm sure we will reach our goal of 10,000 this month. And with all your support, we will reach there. Thank you.
And I think so Narendran and everyone, Sai was the master. I mean, I think the backbone of this. I think he was a lead architect, I would say. I think and along with Raj, we have renamed Raj to Portal Raj. I think a new title of I mean, he worked with, I mean, several students also were part of that. We involved them also so that they get to know the experience. Okay, great. I think once again, thanks. I think so. We officially launched our NIT Trichy portal. Now moving on to the next session, over to Mali. Mali, please have the privilege to, you know, to shoot your thoughts and questions.
Okay, thanks, Raja, so much. Narendran, I must mention that when I took over as president, one of the first things I discussed with Sai was that he had developed an app and we should take this forward. And Sai has been a real rock. I think Raja's mentioned it, and it was my dream also to do an app. I discussed it with the director, and we've discussed it with all alumni. Sai, Raj got in later. And Raja is underplaying his role. He's been the brains trust for us in many of the things we do. He's being modest about what he does, Narendran. I thank the entire team. A lot of other people, there's Kalyan, Manikandan, the entire secretary like Vani and Ganesh. Everybody is chipped in a big way, along with the office bearers, Narendran. I should mention this in context. And thanks, Narendran, for inaugurating the portal. It was ceremonial, but you know it was important for us that it came from your golden touch, the portal. Okay, or rather, touch of steel, I should say. And I should thank the director because she's made my job half easy. Some of the questions I had in mind, she's already asked. Thank you, Director Thomas. It's made my job easy. I'm going to ask you some questions which I went through as a student, and the classical questions many of us go through. I'll start with. I'll come to the funny part of the REC life later, which you might want to answer, might not want to answer. You can choose to not answer. You can't choose not to answer. You have to answer. So let me start with, after going through and being an engineer, dreaming of automobiles, etc. I wasn't good at engineering, so I ran away to management at IIM Calcutta. So why did you, such a good engineer, go for management, Narendran?
No, I don't know if I was a good engineer.
You could have gone abroad. You could have gone abroad for an MS. Most of our guys did that those years.
No, actually, there was a reason. You know, honestly, at that point in time, my dad was between jobs. He'd spent half his savings or most of his savings getting my sister married. So I said, the last thing I want is to ask him to pay for my education in the US or, you know, even fund the ticket. Right. So I said, let me try getting into an IIM. If I don't, let me work for 2-3 years, make some money, and then try and go to the US. Luckily, I got into IIM Calcutta, you know, straight out of campus. The jobs I had, you know, the jobs I had when I left campus were Hindustan Motors and Ashok Leyland. So I would have been in automobiles in some sense if I had not got into IIM Cal. And, you know, but then IIM Cal happened. So to me, but somehow I was always fascinated or interested in the technical side of things. And that's why I said, so it's not as if, you know, I wasn't looking at other options from IIM Cal, but when the Tata Steel And Tata Steel was a day one job those days, if you remember. And when that happened, I just said, okay, I'll take that. And it worked out for me. So it helps me stay connected with both my engineering and my management. And that's why I've hung around for so long. Yeah.
Answers my question, but I think you answered my next question before I ask you the question. Why did the investment banking and the foreign bank world and the consultant world lost to Narendran, I'm sure. Going back.
No, but Mali, if you remember at that time, honestly, there was no consulting firms.
Yeah, I agree. But bank jobs were there. Foreign bank jobs were big. Yeah.
And banking was more retail banking, not so much investment banking, right? So I think the most attractive jobs at that time were more FMCG, right?
Correct. Hindustan Lever and Procter and Gamble.
Yeah, absolutely. So because there was no consulting, was A.F. Ferguson. I can't remember any other consultant.
Correct. Billy Moria, maybe.
Yeah, maybe Billy Moria, right? So options honestly were quite limited if you didn't want FMCG in some sense, right? I mean, there were not so many options. So which is not the case now. I think now there are so many options, and I think what to me is very exciting is more and more youngsters are wanting to become entrepreneurs. I think, whereas we came up in a typical middle class mindset that you join a company and, work your way up. But I think people who don't have an entrepreneurial background getting into becoming entrepreneurs, startups or whatever, I think is fantastic for the country because you need more and more job creators. I mean, we are all job seekers, but you need more and more job creators. And I think that's fantastic. And you're one of them, Mali.
Oh, thank you. This is getting to be a little mushy, Narendran. Okay. Now that you got into Tata Steel and the director asked you a wonderful question about 32 years, how you stayed there, it beats me even now. But let's leave it for the moment because you had an explanation for that and I understand better now why you did that and why you're doing that. Now, you some kind of turnaround expert looks like, Tata Steel over the last 10 years has done so well and the Tata Bhushan Steel turnaround is much talked about in the media. Now, what's about that in you that did the REC experience help you in turning things around? We are pretty good at that on campus. No? So last minute managers and handling crisis, you are not bad at, no, Narendran. Was there any experience in REC which helped you do these turnarounds in any which way? Experience, yeah.
So I don't know if it's politically correct to say, but the ragging in Tata Steel really toughens you up. So I don't know how but those days it was tough. So
ragging in REC or Tata Steel?
So I think, no, to be very honest, frankly, Tata Steel was my first experience living outside my home. That itself toughens you up, right? I mean, if you've been brought up where your parents took care of everything. I mean, till I came to REC, I didn't know what a soap would cost or a toothpaste would cost, right? And you went to Grandy and bought it, then you realize how much it costs, right? So I think in many ways, hostel life is, I think, something I would recommend to anyone, right? And REC was far more cosmopolitan than most other colleges. So you would experience India, right? It's not about experiencing your neighborhood or experiencing the city you've grown up, but you experience India. And I think in many ways, you are much richer from that experience. So, and one doesn't realize that, I mean, today, I don't know if, I mean, I don't have a son, I have a daughter, but if I had a 17-year-old son, I don't know, I could travel by bus from Trichy to Coimbatore in the 2 in the morning bus, which used to take me to Coimbatore by 6 in the morning or something like that. I don't know if I would trust my kid, he was 17 years old, to take a bus in the middle of the night by himself. But I think all of us got toughened up with all those experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah. So today, of course, it's a very different ball game. But these experiences toughen you up, and life is tough, so it gets you more ready for it.
The turnaround story, Narendran. The turnaround story of Tata Bhushan Steel.
I think it's about getting the basics right, get the right people in the right job, collectively decide on the right direction, have proper systems to review the progress, what's up, classical stuff, So to me, I'm a firm believer that ultimately it's about getting the right people in the right job, working with them and getting them motivated. If you get people charged up, you don't have to tell them what to do. You need to help them to run in the right direction often. But, if you have motivated people, then anything can be achieved, right? So I think in all these businesses, it's there are harder stuff for the getting the processes in place, the structures in place, the systems in place. But the softer stuff is also very important, getting the right people in the right job. It is also important to, in all these companies, to also make sure that you work with the talent in those companies who are there. You know, when you acquire a company, it's not about paratrooping your guys and not respecting the people who are already there. So it's about getting the best out of the people who are already there as well. You know, even in our acquisitions overseas or in the acquisitions in India, it's about getting the best out of the people, whether they are part of the organization you've acquired or the part of the organization which is acquiring. So if you can handle people well, I think you can achieve anything.
So, Narendran, I understand and I've read that you were one of the earliest to pick the COVID issue problems and prepared for COVID brilliantly. We have had a separate personal discussion on this also, and it's in the press now, that the way you managed Tata Steel through COVID was exemplary, and it was done with a lot of alacrity and foresight during that period, starting February 2020. It's an observation. You would like to comment on it? You would like to know your experience in whichever way? Yeah.
Yeah, so because we have a big footprint in Europe, by February, we knew what was happening in Europe, and India was, kind of not yet recognizing that there is a problem which is likely to happen. I'm talking of February last year, right? So because we knew what was happening in Europe, we started preparing, because for Tata Steel is not just about running the business well. We also are responsible to the community. In Jamshedpur, there's a city of 1 million people who depend on Tata Steel for the hospital, for everything else. Similarly, we operate in some of the most remote locations in Eastern India, where we run the only hospitals there are and things like that. So we started preparing for it towards the end of February. We started ordering ventilators, PPE kits, etc. So when by middle of March or by the 20th of March, when the rest of India started ordering ventilators, we had already ordered them and they were on the way. So in many ways, we were maybe 3 to 4 weeks ahead. We also started putting in protocols. And I think, luckily for us, steel is seen as an essential good. So steel factories were allowed to operate even during the lockdown. But the challenge was our supply chains were closed, right? Our suppliers were closed, our customers were closed. So how do you operate in such an environment? We are, we are a large company. If you produce goods and don't sell them, that's like 5,000 crores of working capital a month. So you can't just produce and keep it in inventory. So we had to do a lot of stuff. And I think because we were a few weeks ahead, we could, it's like if you're watching Wimbledon, Djokovic always, I don't know whether he's winning or losing now, but he has a couple of seconds.
Who sets up?
But you have a couple of seconds ahead of the others, so that's what mattered for us. So we were, I think, better prepared, and the teams came together. We had protocols in place. We used to have daily calls, leadership calls. Luckily for us, China recovered quite fast, so we suddenly started exporting to China. So a lot of things were done, and it worked very well for us. And of course, because we were taking care of our employees, I think our factories were safer than being in our factory was safer than being outside the factory, because we had very strong protocols, very strong testing system. We used to use a lot of analytics, because anyone who entered the factory had an RFID card. So we used to get alerts if social distancing was not followed. There's a lot of tech used, a lot of good work done by the team. So I think we finished Q1 last year cash positive, which was quite a challenge. And we had the best ever year last year. So we recovered very well.
Narendran, I'm going to couple of these serious questions and combine and go to the fun questions, because we'll give enough time for interaction. The post-pandemic opportunities for India. By the way, I want to mention this alumni cast is the highest attended alumni cast ever, Raja, if I'm right, 230 people plus. Okay. What we discussed in the morning about Wimbledon doesn't matter. Your brand pool is very strong. Don't worry. Okay.
I was telling Bali that he got the date totally wrong. You have America, Wimbledon, Europe, and then suddenly he's trying to squeeze in this lecture in between. So clearly a bad choice. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So my question is post-pandemic opportunities in manufacturing for India, and as CIA president, how do you see opportunities for engineers who are budding and engineers from in our alumni, etc.? You could give a brief answer. We'll go on to the fun questions after that, Narendran.
Yeah. So to me, at a very broad level, there are going to be a lot of opportunities, because a lot of governments are trying to spend their way out of trouble, right? So you see that in the developed world straight away, right? I mean, the kind of response that you've seen to this pandemic is multiple times the response to the 2008 crisis, right? So to me, you had, as I think the Economist described it quite well, you had a unprecedented kind of shock and an unprecedented kind of recovery, right? So, so to me, that itself creates opportunity. So for India, apart from the fact that the Indian government will also try to stay out of trouble, anybody who has markets overseas has an opportunity to capitalize on what's happening in Europe and the US and many other places. So that's, to me, something that there is. From an engineer, REC technology point of view, I mean, to me, tech is going to be technology in multiple ways. Technology is not just about IT, but technology, because increasingly you're going to get differentiated depending on your knowledge intensity as an individual, as a company, as a nation, right? So to me, how can you, leverage that? It's a great opportunity for India. And if you look at today, geopolitical issues are not driven by trade. It is driven more by technology than by trade. Whereas even when Trump started his battle with China, it was about trade. Today is no longer about trade. Nobody asks about the trade deficit between China and US. It's about semiconductors, right? Today, auto industry is struggling because of semiconductors. So to me, technology and technical people will become more and more important, and that's a great opportunity for engineers.
Thanks, Narendran. Now I'm going to test your memory a bit and test your whatever a bit. Okay. Now, which hostel and what was your room number when you left REC?
I was room 76, I think, Lapis. 74 or 76. I have a photograph somewhere. I have to dig it up.
No. There's one answer, Narendran. You can't get two.
I went there 5 years back and there's a photo of me in front of my room. We surprised a guy who was totally shocked when some 5 of us landed up unannounced. And then, so I think I was 74 or 76 Lapis.
Which mess did you go to and which is the meal you hated the most and liked the most?
I think I was in B mess. B.
Yeah. I remember B. Yeah.
B because very unusually for a South Indian, I was more a chapati guy than a rice guy. So B was, I think, I don't know what it is now. We used to have a lot of rotis and all that, so I used to land up there. But I think what we used to eat the most were the eggs. I think every meal had some eggs in different forms, which was served. I'm not sure the rest of the food was very memorable, but eggs got us through campus, all through REC and IIM Calcutta, and all the train rides that I took from Coimbatore to Calcutta and Coromandel Express and all that. So I think it saved my life. Yeah.
How many girls were there in your batch and in your branch? I want an accurate answer. Huh?
Branch was 0, I think. Branch was mechanical engineering was 0. I mean, in a batch was also maybe 10. I think very, very less. I think
the increase on Raja and Sai's batch, I think, looks like.
I think a lot of guys.
My batch at 0. I know the last batch without girls, actually. Yeah.
A lot of guys in REC used to pretend to go to the temple, but hang around on that road quite a bit. But obviously.
Narendran, that segues to my next question. Outside Lapis, where is the place you hung around most, basically?
Grandi. I don't know if it still exists.
Grandi and the juice shop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And I remember in our times, you were part of the reception committee in Festember. How was your Festember experience in your final year? What is the high point of Festember? When I say high point, please understand my question.
So Festember, everyone wanted to be in the reception committee, right? I mean, that's right. So there's not a lobbying for that. I don't know why I got it, but I got it. I obviously was not the right guys like you, Bali. So.
And what is the high point of Festember? You're still not answering the question.
No, high point was, hanging around there and hoping that you would meet people, but never happened, right? But you obviously had stories to tell people so that there would be another set of guys wanting to join the reception committee.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you, how are you as a student? Top 10%, top 25%? You can choose not to answer this question if you don't want to.
No, I was always middle class as a student.
Oh.
In my branch also, I was somewhere in the middle, maybe some 20th rank.
But you should have done well to get mechanical, no, Narendran?
Yeah, so I think in my first year, I was 26 or something out of 250.
Very nice. That's what I thought. Top 10%. Basically.
So I got into mech and then I was like somewhere in, I don't know, must be 20th rank or something like that. Nothing exceptional.
Did you play any sports on campus? You look athletic. You used to be athletic.
I used to run a lot. I used to run very often from Lapis all around the campus
or
to
athletics team
Grandy.
or something, or as athletics team or something.
No, I used to run. I used to play. Thanks to my good friend and wingmate Murgi, I learned some tennis. Or Murgavel, I learned some tennis. He's fired me for calling him Murgi. So I learned some tennis, and then I used to play cricket in school. And in school, we won the inter-district in Coimbatore. The school I was in, Kikani Vidya Mandir, were the district champions. But in REC, I think the standard of cricket was much higher, so I never made it to the college team. Good friends of ours like Sham never selected me. So
Director, that batch of IIM Calcutta had two people from Trichy. One is Sham and one is Narendran. Actually,
yeah. So, but I used to always I used to play sports. I used to play cricket also, tennis, whatever. I think I've always tried to play whatever sport I could, and I've always been active physically.
My two last questions, Narendran. I'll keep. What is your high point in your career and high point in REC?
I think REC, obviously, getting the jobs that I did, but getting into IIM Cal was, to me, I mean, I got into Cal Bangalore, and I didn't get into Ahmedabad. I got into Cal Bangalore and Lucknow. They were the only 4 IIMs at that time. But I will never forget the day I got into IIM Calcutta. And, this was the day of India, Pakistan, and Sharjah, right?
Oh,
and the famous
86 May. 86 May.
Absolutely. So I was in that front row in our common room watching that match. Last over was being bowled.
That's scoring a 6.
And then suddenly somebody called out to say that you have a telegram. I mean, those are the days of telegram. Today's people won't know it. I said, oh my God, what timing. And telegram, you never ignored those days, because telegram means some very good news or very bad news, right? So I left my prime first row seat in front of the TV, went out. My parents had sent me a telegram saying that IIM Calcutta, you got into IIM Calcutta. So I was only happy guy at REC that day.
Chetan Sharma didn't matter to you then.
Everyone was in boarding. I was the guy saying, okay, I'll take you guys to Grandy and buy you something. So
okay.
I will, in some sense, that was my high point in REC from a, kind of personal
in your
point
career, in Tata Steel in your career, what would you say?
I think obviously, I mean, see, to me, obviously being selected to become the managing director was a great privilege for me. And, I think that was, like I said, in 2013, when I was picked to be the CEO for India and Southeast Asia, in 2017 for Tata Steel globally. These were high points because, I mean, it's an opportunity for me to do whatever I can. So more from that point of view.
What are the naughtiest thing you did in REC?
Oh, I think...
Should we go on here, mute some of us?
Yeah. Some of this may not be politically correct, right? I mean, I remember once there was some rumor that some guy from Agate had, yelled at some guy in Lapis or Ruby or I don't know what. And then some whole bunch of us went looking for some guy, and I don't even know if the guy existed. So we roamed around the campus all night looking for the guy who we never found. So I think that was probably the closest we came to getting violent in some sense. Yeah.
At the sound of repeating the question, director asked 3.3 things. I think one of the students had asked you 3 things, three bits of advice quickly, and then we'll sign off, basically, for the students.
No, I think for students in today's day and age, there's no substitute for hard work, right? I mean, it's always been there, may not be so visible, but it's important. Secondly, keep investing in, learning, because to me, you'll make a big mistake if you assume that the learning ends when you pass out of college, right? I mean, there's so much to learn after that, learning from experiences. And today you can learn anything, anytime, anywhere, right? I mean, that's a privilege many of us didn't have when we started. Technology allows you to pick up knowledge, on your fingertips at any point in time. So keep investing in developing yourself and never give up, and be passionate about what you do and never give up if you're passionate about it. I think, that's what I would say. Work for me.
Thanks, Narendran. I think you're being disarmingly honest and simple. Actually, it's so wonderful talking to you. I will let Raja talk about Industry 4 and open up the Q&A. We almost have time till Raja, maybe till 10:15 or 10:10. Till what is your comfort level? Hard stop, Narendran. Sorry to pushing you on this. You sleep early.
No, I'm good. No, we started.
Raja, please. Go on. Raja, all yours.
I'm flexible. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Thanks,
Raj,
Pali. Yeah.
Raja, before you start, I may have to leave. I have to be in college at 10 o'clock. So sorry, Narendran.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
for joining
Director.
us.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful of you. Thank you.
Thank you for staying so long also. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Director.
Okay, so let me start the first question. I think there are a lot of questions on the chat window and also on the portal. So let me start the first question. So Narendra, I think you talked about a lot of technology. What do you say? I think execution within the Tata Steel. You talked about RFID and everything, but Industry 4.0 is completely changing the landscape with the advance with the emergence of AI and machine learning, automation, right? There is going to be an impact. And look at that. I think you also met that. I mean, I also just read that article. The semiconductor shortage is going to hit the car industry the maximum. So given all these things, how do you think the supply chain is going to be in post-pandemic, especially keeping Industry 4.0 is concerned? The supply chain shortage is there. And during the COVID, we had the Suez Canal issue. Even today, like last week, someone went and ordered an air condition. The delivery is going to take 6 months, right? Okay, we understand Tesla cars are going to take 3 months because Tesla, ships the delivery on an end of the quarter. So what are the things like that is going to have an impact in India with the advance of this technology? Some perspectives or prescription that would be grateful.
So to me, there are two dimensions to it. One is the geopolitical dimension, and because of which supply chains will start de-risking, supply chains had started de-risking even from Fukushima, because at that's when global supply chains realized how vulnerable they were. So organizations started doing risk assessment at multiple levels beyond their immediate vendors to see, are they vulnerable to one single vendor sitting somewhere who's supplying to 5 of their vendors, and when they think they're dealing with 5 guys, they're actually dealing with 1 guy, right? Similarly, the pandemic and many other things showed global supply chains can be very disruptive if you've not managed your risk well, right? So that is one part. The second part is technology allows you to drive efficiencies to a very different level in complex and long supply chains, right? So to me, that also gives you an opportunity to optimize. And today, when you look at even an Amazon or some of these companies, their differentiator is how efficiently they run their supply chains. Because not only do you manage a cost well, but you also manage the customer experience, right? And technology allows you to do it at a very different level than we used to doing in the past. And if I look at Industry 4.0, process industries like us, we've traditionally captured a fraction of the information that we generate every minute. And you only analyze a fraction of the information that you capture. So if we've been able to do all that we've been able to do with a fraction of the information which is available, then you look at the opportunity that there is if you can capture a lot more information and analyze it and things like that. So I think I honestly feel that we are still scratching the surface. Okay. I think there's huge opportunity to drive ecosystem efficiencies using technology. Okay. And we are nowhere near where we should be.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think that is just that makes me to extend the question. You talked about how Tata Steel was, doing effective business and you are proactive. I think there's a question on the chat window. I'm just going to ask this. How did you manage to export steel to China when China was producing at a cheaper rate?
The confusion which there is we confuse cost and price. I've always said, China used to sell cheap, didn't mean they were competitive. If you can sell at a price and make money selling at that price, then I will call you competitive. If you sell at a price and lose money at that price, that's not rocket science, that anyone can do as long as somebody else is writing the check. So okay. For a long time, China was selling steel cheap and not making money. The Chinese steel industry was the most unprofitable steel industry in the world. So just because they were selling cheap, everyone said China is competitive. So we were confusing cost and price, right? So India is a competitive place to produce steel because India has raw material. Russia is a competitive place to produce steel because Russia has raw material. Right? China imports raw material and was selling steel cheap. Secondly, what happens in industrial businesses is you export 10% of what you produce. this is a high fixed cost business. So that 10% you can sell as long as you cover your variable cost and sell cheap, and which is what is happening. So what happened is after the pandemic, when China started recovering and Chinese demand was growing, we could sell steel into China and make money selling steel in China, because at those prices we were making money. China never made money selling steel in India. India made money selling steel in China.
Okay, great.
Good answer. Great answer.
Great answer. So now I would like to, now you have multiple roles. I think your avatars you are having, right, as the president of CII and CEO and managing director of Tata Steel. Now, definitely the pandemic has impacted several people's life in terms of, a lot of people getting laid off and, things like that. So the question is, what do you recommend? Just maybe may not be from Tata Steel's perspective as a president of CII, when all the industry, the CEOs are coming and, want to take the advice. How do they manage the post? What leadership qualities they should have? How they are going to take care of all the people getting laid off and bringing back the people to work? Any advice from that perspective?
See, we have to be obviously sensitive. We have to, be conscious of what people are going through. I think at a very fundamental level, what all of us in industry need to make sure is everyone is vaccinated. As many people as possible are vaccinated. At your personal level, please vaccinate everyone in your homes, people who work for you. People who work for you sometimes cannot afford to get vaccinated, and get them vaccinated. As professionals in factories, get your employees vaccinated, their families vaccinated, contract workers vaccinated, anybody else, because that's the only way we can ensure there's an economic recovery, right? Okay. Because if you don't vaccinate enough people, the economy can get derailed again. And I don't think we can afford a third derailment of economy in 18 months. I don't think India has that much of fiscal space, right? So to me, it's very important for us to ensure that that happens. Second thing is be as sensitive as possible. Like I think Tata Steel has come out with a lot of policies to support the families, because it's not also about the financial support. There are many youngsters who've died. How is it that the organization can stay connected with the families of employees who lost their lives? And oftentimes that's also important. There may be a 35-year-old who's lost a life. So how can somebody in the organization stay connected with that person's spouse, that person's parents, and be there? Because obviously people are not ready for that kind of a loss. And then if the organization can be there for them, that's it. The third part is, of course, to say that, which is more a macroeconomic and an economic thing, like I said earlier, many governments are trying to spend their way out of trouble. So if you can respond quickly, come out of it strongly, then, you can leverage the opportunity that there is. And I think that's what has happened in the metals industry. Commodity prices have gone up. Metals companies, steel companies are all having record profits because you could recover quite fast from the pandemic. And that will also trigger private sector investment, which is starting to happen in India, at least in the metal space. So it's not a one solution fits all. If you're in the services space, if you're in the hospitality, if you're on the high contact businesses, it's been a tough 18 months. So there are some parts of the industry which are recovered well, and some parts of the industry which need more support. MSMEs need a lot of support, for instance. Liquidity is an issue. High commodity prices is also hurting people. So there are multiple challenges, but it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And governments have to look at it.
Raja, you want to check Ganapati Subramaniam?
Yeah, just 1 second. I will have Ganapati to ask the question, but before that, so the war for talent, I think if you look at, I think there is a dearth of talent that is there in the place. But so keeping that in mind, do you think there is a labor shortage, or it is because of wage shortage?
So it's a very paradoxical situation, right? If you see in the US, for instance, or in many developed countries, there is unemployment, but there is also shortage, right? Because which means many people are not wanting to take up the jobs that they were doing before the pandemic, right? So there is a need to look at that. The Economist, I think, talked about it, saying that there are more people wanting to be in front of the bar than behind the bar. They're struggling to get people back into the hospitality space. So I think that is a challenge. Secondly, in India, if you look at it, after wave 1, more and more people want jobs closer to their homes. They don't want to get stuck 1,000 kilometers away and have a lockdown and then have to make the trek back, right? So people are looking for jobs closer to the places that they live in, right? So there would be different kind of pressures in different economies. So you have a situation where contract workers are going to be a challenge in some parts of the country. Some industries are still struggling to recover because of contract worker issues. Also, with government support in many countries, there are many who are getting supported even if they don't work. So there are multiple things which are at play. But increasingly, it's also an opportunity. I mean, you can offer a lot more flexibilities to employees today than you did earlier because of technology and because of the fact that we are used to working with technology like never before.
And there's a lot of questions I think people are posting on the window. What is the Tata Steel plan for battery materials? I don't know. It is.
Yeah, so I think mainly lithium is something which is used. Lithium within the Tata Group, Tata Chemicals is doing some work on it. From our point of view, we are not so much into lithium, etc. But we are looking at new materials, not so much battery materials, but we are looking at composites in a big way. We are looking at fiber reinforced polymers. We're doing a lot of work on graphene. So we're looking at materials which would be more relevant in a electrified mobility kind of situation or a more electrified ecosystem. But battery materials, we are not doing anything directly ourselves as Tata Steel. Tata Group is doing work. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, now I think in the interest of time, so there are a lot of questions we will try to get answered that will be sent to you. But I think Ganapati. I think Ganapati is your batchmate. I think if I recall, Narendran. Ganapati, if you are there, can you unmute and ask your question, please? Ganapati. I don't know. I think we are not there. And is Matthew? Is it Mali? Who is the next person? You said
Philip Matthew.
Philip Matthew. Yeah, Philip Matthew. Philip Matthew, are you there?
Ganapati is on the call, but he's muted. I can't. He's on the call. Anyway, let's keep going. Yeah.
Okay, Philip Matthew, you can go ahead with your question. Vani, can you unmute Philip Matthew, please?
Raja, we also have the student council president, Madhav Agarwal. He wants to raise a question.
Okay, yeah, right. I think I'll go. Okay. If Philip Matthew is not asking that, Madhav, can you go ahead, please?
Yeah, good evening, sir. This is Madhav Agarwal, the president of the student council. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, Madhav.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you, sir. Amazing talk. Some really key pointers I took away from that. And I just had one managerial question to ask before talking on behalf of my college. For example, when a new management comes in, you were talking about fifth and sixth generational employees in the company. So when a new management comes in, they try to do stuff and change stuff in their own way, right? So in that case, is it the responsibility of the old employees to adapt to the changes that the new management is bringing in, or should the new management make them feel comfortable, the existing employees?
Yeah. So, I always tell my colleagues, firstly, obviously, all of us, the older people, have to drive change for the future because we have to make organizations future ready, right? It's not about what we did for the last 30 years, but how the organization is going to be ready for the next 30 years. And I tell the younger colleagues in our companies that they should be pushing harder because it's their future. We have an option not to do much and retire and go away, but it's their future. So they should be more invested in it in that sense of the term. As an organization which has been around for a long time, one of the challenges we've had is we have a very rich history and we are proud of our past. But, there's this academic in the US, Vijay Govindarajan, who talks about the fact that a company who only talks of its past has no future, right? And I think I've repeated that many times to my colleagues. Much as we are proud of our past, what is it that we can talk? We should be talking more and more about our future than the past. So if you see the Tata Steel tagline, that is also an attempt to think about the future. So we had a very famous tagline from the past called "We also make steel." So we did a twist on that and said, "We also make tomorrow." So that was to force everyone to think about the future rather than be stuck with the past. So, so to me, making the organization future ready, and today in Tata Steel, we talk of being future ready structurally, culturally, and financially. And how can we make sure that we as an organization are structurally future ready, culturally future ready, and financially future ready? And I think so it's very, very important to do that and to get that mindset thinking about the future.
Raja Kannabiran had a question, Raja.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm moving one by one. I'm moving one by one. Yeah, Kannabiran, you can go. You can unmute
Sir,
and
I'll
talk.
just finish. Say if you can give me just one moment, I'll just finish.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
so thank you for that answer. So, sir, NIT Trichy has an association with CII's vertical, youth vertical UVA as well. We're looking to tie up with the IGBC as well in the coming days. And I think you yourself as a car enthusiast would be really interested in the work that the college has been doing, the clubs have been doing. We have a club called PSI. They've been doing really, really well in winning competitions, national level competitions. So, sir, we would love to see you more like involved in the coming years in the activities, and looking forward to interacting with you more and more, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks, Madhav.
Thanks, Madhav.
Thanks, Madhav.
Professor Kannabiran, please go ahead.
Good evening, Ms. Mahendran. I'm a faculty at RISI Trichy, currently Director of Indian Institute of Information Technology, Sri City. I have a question to you. How do you think we need to create a framework for leveraging Industry 4.0 in the Indian manufacturing sector? I mean, do you think how do we take all the stakeholders together and leverage the technology?
Yeah. You know, so there are multiple dimensions to it. One is the large companies will do what they have to do, right? Because I think they are very well plugged into what's happening globally, and they will change, right? To me, what is important is the MSME sector plugging into the opportunities that there is, you know, and the large companies can play a role in that because many of the MSME sector deal with the large companies, whether as a supplier or as a customer. So if large companies work on the ecosystem, then I think there's an opportunity to do that. Secondly, again, this is more from my CII point of view. There's a lot of work that we are doing with Niti Aayog and parts of the government like that to create ecosystems, create centers of excellence, which can act as a catalyst for the industry, the smaller companies particularly, right? Because you could share best practices, you could share use cases, you could handhold them, you could help them. And we are going to be setting up many of the countries who had a very good transition to Industry 4.0, whether Germany, whether it's Singapore, places like that have these kind of centers which help smaller companies. So I think that's also important. The third part is, I feel somewhere industry, academia, and government works in silos. You know, if you look at technology-intensive industries, or if you look at countries who've done a good job of developing new technologies, I think there is far more coherence in the way academia, industry, and the scientific community work together. And I think we need to do a better job of that in India. I think everyone works in their own silos. One of the organizations I'm involved in, Indian Institute of Metals, actually tries to do that because it's not an advocacy group. It has scientists, it has academia, and it has industry. And we're trying to see how can a platform like that work to a better job. But you look at the UK, they've done a wonderful job of academia, industry, and scientists working together. Many other countries have done a good job of that. I think in India, we need to do a better job of that.
Raja, can we wrap it up in a couple of questions, Raja?
That's correct. I think we'll take in the interest of time, we'll take one more question. Maybe I don't know who wants to go. Anand Kumar, you wanted to go? Maybe one more last question. Please put the questions on the chat window. We will get the response from Narendran. But given the time constraint, I think we got to cut short this. Anand Kumar,
hey, can I go ahead? Can I ask my question?
Yeah,
very
please.
Quick. This is Vijay Raghavan. Narendran, very interesting talk. My question is, while you were at REC, did you ever imagine or dream that one day you will be heading a top company like Tata's. That's number one. Number two, I see you as a very charming and handsome personality. Did that become a factor in your success, according to you?
Narendran, can I answer the second part of the question?
Okay, go ahead, Narendra. I would like to listen to you.
No, so to answer your first question, honestly, I mean, when you're in REC, I think, like I said, my main objective was once I pass out of REC, I shouldn't be, depending on my dad. I should be able to stand on my own, and that was my first objective. I don't think becoming the CEO of a company, that was too far away, right? So it was more about thinking of the next 3-4 years than next 30-40 years, right? The second one is a question which, if I answer, I'm assuming your question is correct. So I'll be
Modest Narendran.
Modern Narendran, yeah.
Okay, so Vijay Raghavan, you are asking something. You are done with that. Anand Kumar, please go ahead. No, unmute, please.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I think it's a very inspiring talk, sir. Really, so it's a moment of pride for all of us that you are from REC, and that creates big story and big inspiration for us. So, sir, my question is, one of the key differentiator or key factors between successful people and super successful people is this, what I have heard or what I have learned, is that super successful people, they are able to understand the language of their subconscious mind, their inspiration, their intuition, the gut feeling. So do you, sir, have any experience like that, where all your research showed or told not to do certain project, not to invest somewhere, but your gut said, no, go for it, and you went for it, and that resulted into success?
No, I think that happens all the time, to be very honest. I think all of us need to keep aside time for reflection. And particularly in today's day and age, it's very easy to get consumed with the multiple things that are happening, right? So I always feel that you should keep aside some time every day to reflect. And that maybe when you reflect, you will get the answers, the point that you make. And oftentimes what you decide to do may not be what other people ask you to do, right? So I think, but you cannot come to that conclusion till you reflect. I think a couple of people made mention of the fact that I wake up early. Yes, I wake up at 5 o'clock, and to me 5 to 7:30 is my reflection time. I go for a run, I go for a walk. I'm out on my own. I don't like to go for a walk or a run with anybody. I like to do it myself because that's my reflection time. I don't want to talk to anyone. It's my thinking time, right? And that's the time when you think about your day or yesterday or tomorrow, whatever. And oftentimes, and many times, I have, kept aside some difficult problem to solve for my morning. So when I go for my run with that thought in my mind, oftentimes you come back from the run with some answer. So I think it's important. I'm not saying you'll always get the right answers, but you have to keep aside time to reflect, because some of the decisions, and particularly as you grow in organizations, there are very few people you can discuss many things with. You have to think about it yourself and decide on it yourself. And so you have to spend time with yourself.
Okay, great. Okay,
we should wrap up.
No, we have one last question from Professor Anantaraman. Anantaraman, are you there? Hello, Anantaraman?
Yes, I am very much there.
Please go ahead.
It's great to see Narendran keeping up our flag very high. I just want to know, he gave a lot of advices for youngsters. What is scope for chemical engineers in Tata Steel?
Chemical engineers, we don't really, I think we do have a few chemical engineers in R&D, but otherwise we are largely, in fact, they are an organization of metallurgists. I've almost felt deficient as a mechanical engineer in REC. So because metallurgists are the guys, then of course you have mechanical and electrical and civil guys. But chemical, we don't really have too many. We have in R&D, but not so much in the core functions. Yeah.
Maybe with regard to effluent treatment, things like that, we may have some scope, I believe.
Yeah, See, ultimately, I mean, if you look at many of these functions, there's so much of convergence, right? That the boundaries between some of these disciplines are blurring.
Yeah.
So to that extent, I totally agree with you. I mean, even a biotechnologist has a role in Tata Steel, for some of the work that we do, right? So to me, that's there. But obviously, when we go to campuses and recruit, it's more mechanical, electrical, and metallurgy.
Thanks, Narendran. Raja, are we done?
Yes, I think we can wrap up the Q&A. And given the interest of time, there are a lot of questions on the chat window. There are a lot of questions that have come on our portal also. I think I want to thank people using the portal to post their questions. We will try to get them answered, and also there will be a copy of this, the recording of this session that will be shared with all the broader alumnus network. Now, with that said, thanks, Narendran. It was a great opportunity for me to interact with you. Mali, with the closing remarks.
Okay. Narendran, Rohit has a lot of work left now, I think. Okay. Yeah. Now, Rohit is Narendran's executive assistant. Narendran, wonderful, wonderful evening. I've reserved this evening only to say very nice things about you. Okay. You've been so nice to us. And as I said right in the beginning, you're a rare gem in our jewel. You made us feel very, very proud. And I think all of us will leave with that feeling inspired. And the students have learned a lot from you. I'm sure the alumni have reoriented themselves, and people like us are keep learning from you. Thanks so much, Narendran, for giving time. I think Djokovic is on the verge of winning at one. So
he's won. I've been checking that on the side.
So have I. Okay. Thanks, Narendran, for the evening to do this for us. Thanks, everybody. I think it's been a wonderful evening. Thanks so much, Narendran. Really appreciate this.
Thanks, Mali. Thank you so much for inviting me. My privilege to be part of this institution and part of this session. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks,
Narendran.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Raj. Thanks.
Thank you for a wonderful session.